Hello, my name is Kevin Lessman. My group members are going to be Michael Hawk and Valmy McKinney. We're going to be talking to you today about how history affects culture. Culture can be defined as the way that you think, the way that you act, and the way that you interact with your friends, colleagues, family members, and other people inside society.
I'm Michael Hawk, and after defining culture, we're going to further define it by the 6 aspects that make up a culture. Those 6 aspects are social organizations, customs and traditions, religion, arts and literature, forms of government, and economic systems. These all together can teach us more about how a culture affects history and all aspects of marketing.
Social institutions. Social institutions are made up of 6 categories. The first category is family, second is religion, third is school, fourth media, fifth government, and the last one is going to be corporations. One major article that was passed in 1970s that majorly affected women's rights inside corporations, government, media, school, religion, family, all social institutions is Title IX. Title IX is a comprehensive federal law that prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in any federal funded education program or activity. For a real-world example of Title IX, college programs have to have a baseball program and a softball program. They may not have one or the other. Both have to exist. Our next presenter is going to be Valmy McKinney.
Yo, what's good? So, what I'll be talking about here is customs and traditions. The main customs and traditions that most countries do respect the most, and what are the main things that, what are the main things that a business person needs to consider when they go do business in another country, in a country other than the homeland. And it's very important for them to understand customs and traditions, because honestly speaking, the survival of their business abroad is going to be based on their understanding of foreign customs. Culture encompasses religion, food, what we wear, how we wear it, our language, marriage, music, what we believe is right or wrong, how we sit at the table, how we greet visitors, how we behave with loved ones, and a million other things. And on top of that, they have to conduct a thorough historical background check of the country. They have to understand what is the origin of the people, did the people do to become who they are today, and what are the struggles that the people are going through. So to break this down in simple words, what I meant to say by that is the impact of specific events in history can be seen reflected in customs and traditions. So here in Texas, for example, it's very common for people to be greeted by strangers, whereas in New York, it's very rare to see such events take place. Why? Because it's just their culture. And part of the culture is always to be on the go and be all about their business. And what I'm trying to say here is being located in the same country does not always mean that the countries or the people of that country are going to have the same cultural aspects.
Religion is defined as the belief in and worship of a superhuman controlling power, especially a personal god or gods. Almost every civilization has its own religion, from Roman times, Greek times, Egyptian, Chinese. All of them have a religion going back ages and ages. And these religions are very important on culture. We already know that they help establish culture overall. But what we're going to look at a little bit more is how religion will form the ideas that we're discussing most about history's relevance in culture and how to mark it with the knowledge of this history and culture together. So after defining culture, we look at how it's relevant to marketing, and it's relevant to history, which is relevant to marketing. One of the examples I have is talking about Christianity in the postmodern world. And a sentence I have from that is, while women in the professional world and academic world have made great strides towards equality, feminists continue to criticize evangelical Christianity for the stance it takes on women. In the majority of evangelical churches, women aren't entitled to the same positions as men. So we can see that religion, through history, as affected on culture, has not been the best for bringing about egalitarianism and moving the world forward. Other religions exhibit the same sort of impact on equality and how we will market to a country who does not have the same equality. Obviously, women in the Middle East, in the Middle Eastern religions, often have to cover their skin, cover their heads with scarves or burqas, hijabs. All sects really have their own definition and style in how to keep them from doing that. So as a marketer, we look at this entire gender being unable for us to market to, and that is how religion very much has an impact on history itself and how we're going to market to them in the future.
The most universal survey research problem in foreign countries is the language barrier. You would think that religion is going to be the most thing that businesses are going to struggle with when they go do business in another country. But researchers have shown that languages is usually what they deal with the most. And why is language a problem in when businesses try to open the doors to or foreign markets or try to expand their businesses abroad? Well, the thing that you need to understand is if you don't know what I'm telling you, or if you don't understand what I'm trying to say to you, there's no way we can have any form of communication going. And around 75% of the world population don't speak English. A grasp of a different language improves your ability to use your first language and explore other cultures and be more successful. Um, Learn another language to be successful in life, in education, to get a good job. The history of the formation of languages is very important to understand, as language can have a direct influence on cultural values, expectations, and even conceptions of time. The idea is that crossing wider language differences increase transaction costs. Over the years, linguistic researchers have determined that languages around the world conform to family trees based on the similarity of the forms and development. Moreover, the relationship between language spoken and cultural values hold deeper implications.
So now we're going to talk about arts and literature and how they affect culture and affect us while we're trying to market in other countries or in our own country, specifically other countries. I've got a quote here that says, "Whether to record the daily rituals of Paleolithic life or to further one's knowledge in a field, people have used art to improve, organize, and promote their societies from the beginning of time." So that's a very easy way to show and explain how important things like arts and literature are. They help define what we refer to as our culture. It's not that we all know the same stories from years past, but it's that we've seen the same illustrations of those stories. That leads us to have a very strong understanding of our own culture through arts and literature. For an example of how arts and literature help determine a culture, I've looked at the stories of Harriet Tubman and how she's perceived through history. Many articles write about how her image has been misrepresented to lead towards opinions and decisions that aren't necessarily what she stood for. Now, we all know she was a very integral role in the civil rights struggles of the 1800s, the Underground Railroad, and things of this sort. I've got a quote here that says, "Although mainstream American narratives have relegated Harriet Tubman to the safe confines of children's literature and elementary school education, she looms large in African American art, which means that fantasy, not history, does the work of memorialization and monument making." So after showing you how arts and literature are very important, we can see that a picture truly is worth 1,000 words. Ah, good, huh?
Government. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is a federal law that prohibits employers from discriminating against employees on the basis of sex, race, color, national origin, and religion. It generally applies to employers with 15 or more employees, including federal, state, and local governments. Title VII also applies to private and public colleges, universities, employment agencies, and labor organizations. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title VII to be specifically, basically just goes in and says that for every single man that is inside that program, there has to be a woman. Economic system. Equal Pay Act of 1963 is a United States federal law amending the Fair Labor Standards Act. It aimed at abolishing wage disparity based on sex. The Equal Pay Act of 1963 is based on a wage disparity. Basically what the purpose of it is to go and create an equal pay, so to speak, among men and women.
So as of today, get out of your shell, go explore, learn about all the cultures, learn about all the languages, learn about the customs and traditions of other countries. Because at the end of the day, we are moving towards a more unified global economy, whereas countries are working together so we can move forward and make a unified world. I personally think that the only way to not feel left out in this unified world that we are creating is by learning all the cultures and learning all the languages and willing to explore and go beyond the national boundaries. So get out there, do what you gotta do. You get out there, go explore.